Hello, BookTube, and welcome back. And today we're going to focus on the 1980s. Oh, yes, the big decade, the Thatcher and Reagan decade. Oh, yes, the decade I was born. So, I've actually made a couple of fantasy videos before. So, I've talked about fantasy that I personally can't stand, and I've also made a video about unsung fantasy, so little known fantasy out there. So this is going to be the next one, and this is going to be the fantasy that came out in the 1980s. So I believe this decade kind of churned out a lot of D&D kind of fantasy, obviously after the role playing game, and also it was the start of the more gritty kind of realism kind of fantasy. So that move away from Tolkien. So yeah, these are 5 books I think you should read that came out in the 1980s. So number 5, and these are in no particular order. So number 5 is as good as number 1. You just got to read them, right? So what is the number 5? This is the Belgariad by David Eddings. Now this is a 5-book series. So you got the Pawn of Prophecy, you've got Queen of Sorcery, Magician's Gambit, Castle of Wizardry, and Enchanter's Endgame. There's more books around this universe as well. There's a prequel, and there's another 5-book series set after the Belgariad, but you can push those to aside. You don't need to deal with them. It's just this 5-book series. So this is about a boy called Garion, who is a simple farmer. You know, it's one of those kind of stories. And his aunt Polgara, I think her name is, Polgara. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, here comes his grandfather, who's a cantankerous, old, miserable wizard sod. Right? Think Gandalf, but extra grumpy, right? And he basically tells Gary, he's you could fulfill the prophecy because there's a dark god called Torak, I think that's his name, who's stolen this orb, which they need to go and get off him before he ends the world. Now, that's pretty much the gist of the book, and it goes on. He meets a princess towards book 3 or 4, and then she leads an army against the dark god's army, and eventually the good guys take the orb away from the bad guy. But that's not the end of the story, because there's a lot of friction and a lot of battles in the Belgariad. Now, this fantasy books, they don't do anything new or anything, like no lessons here, people. It's your bog standard basic fantasy. I might do another list of like the best of the Tolkien clones. This is one of them. I'm not saying that as a slight, because I put Wheel of Time in the same kind of bracket. This is the best of the Tolkien clones. But this is an immensely readable book. It is it is pretty much chef's kiss. This book series is very much your introduction into fantasy. So if you've got somebody out there who has never read fantasy before, give them this series. None of the books are huge chunkers. They're all good pint-sized books you can smash out in one go. They are great. You should really read this, because the characters are well defined. The story is, I wouldn't say simple, but easy to follow. So you haven't got all this like crazy Game of Thrones going, there's loads of subplots and whatnot. So this is a very simple, basic fantasy done right, and that's why I put it on a list why everyone should. Number 4. So we're going to enter more darker waters here, darker territory. So this is Glenn Cook's The Chronicles of the Black Company. Now this is a 10-book series. There's loads of different little books as well that fit in between, but it's mainly a 10-book series. But the 10-book series can be separated down into smaller chunks. So the first 3 books, I believe, is called, it's either the Book of the North or the People of the North. I can't remember. But The books are The Black Company, Shadows Linger, and The White Rose. Now, this, as I said, is a very dark, gritty fantasy. So think of more the lines of your Malazan Book of the Fallen, but less confusing and darker, right? So this is, I don't really want to call them soldiers. The more the more mercenaries, right? And they are serving this person called a lady who's like, she's evil beyond belief. But then they learn that the White Rose has been born, and she's gonna be, she's gonna make the world good again. So it's about them leaving the lady, and then eventually joining and helping the White Rose defeat the lady. That's basically the gist of the first trilogy of them being, sought after and then trying to survive, and then eventually joining a White Lady. But at the end, maybe there's even more powerful, dark entity behind the lady that's controlling things. So, as I said, this is really morally ambiguous. It's also incredibly dark. But most of all, I think this series is about survival. Now, this book series is not going to be for everyone because it is that gritty, but the writing is powerful and impactful. So it will pull you in for those who like the dark, gritty stuff. And if you've not picked up The Black Company, why haven't you? So yeah, if you like a book about a bunch of mercenaries trying to survive, against all odds, because the odds are against them, and try and recorrect old wrongs and join the more good, even though that's morally ambiguous, right? Pick up this series. It is a really, really well done, well crafted, well story driven and character driven story about survival. Now, number 3 is a bit of an odd one, and I'll get to why in just a second. But this is Magic by Numbers by Lyndon Hardy. Now, this is a 7-book series, but in my opinion, I don't think you need to read all 7 of them. You only need to read the first one. This is Master of the 5 Magics. So in this book, the protagonist, Aladar, he wants to become a master of all, I think there's 5 magics, and he wants to do it incredibly well. But that's not his only ambition. He also wants to claw back some prestige that himself and his family have lost. And the way he wants to do that by is marry the queen, as one does, but he's got a rival as well, so he wants to attain and become an expert in all these 5 magics quickly as well. So that's the main plot of the book. There's a subplot about a lord in this land who's demon possessed, who is also trying to kill the queen and conquer the realm. So that's basically the gist of the story. And the reason why I said it's a bit of an odd one is because world building, character development, diplomacy, even dialogue takes a backseat in this book. It's really, really, really about the magic system here. This is probably one of the most influential fantasy books out there regarding the fantasy system. It's Magic the Gathering, the game, has used elements from this book. A lot of later fantasy books have crawled all like that idea, like Patrick Rothfuss and all that have used ideas from this book. So the magic system is incredibly complicated. It's about balance. It's about the pros and cons, what you can do, what you can't do. It's very, very well done. I don't want to say realistic because it's fantasy, but it makes sense up here about the fine balance that a wizard needs to take in before he starts casting, spells and whatnot. So yeah, dialogue and all that. This is not the strong point of this book, although it's not bad by any means. But where this book shines is its magic system, and you should read it because it's been massively influential for that reason, and that's why you should read it. Now, to be honest, number two is a strange one too. So this one, it's Tim Powers, the Anubis Gates, and if you know it, you know it. This is it dips into many genres. So it's steampunk fantasy, it's steampunk science fiction, it's mythology, it's weird. Okay, so it's about this bloke Brendan, and he's been approached by a millionaire, Coldrich, I think his name is. He's to basically be a guide to time travelers. Okay, so that's the gist of the story. And all the while that Brendan's being a guide and traveling through time and all sorts, he's being pursued by evil beggars and sorcerers and all sorts of hijinks. And it's again, I'm a big Discworld fan. It's got that bit of comedy to it, but it's about ideas. It's smashing in loads of stuff. So you got quantum, you got fantasy, you got science fiction, you got mythology, you got folklore. You've got absolutely tons of ideas crammed into this 350-page book. But don't when I say quantum, don't get no. I don't want it to do with physics or anything. It doesn't get massively complicated. It is a fantastic. You're along for the ride basically with this book, and it's a must read because it's so weird and so unique. I mean, I could have put on Raymond E. Feist or anything like that, whose books I do enjoy, well, some of them, but the Anubis Gates from the 80s, it's such a unique, readable book that bridges so many genres and being comical at the same time, where the protagonist is basically going out of his mind. He's basically just a regular bloke who's trying to just survive this time traveling event with this crazy millionaire Coldridge, right? And it's not really about plot; it's about ideas, but it's very well done, very finely written. It's comical, and it's basically every genre under the sun, but it is fantastical, and that's why it's my favorite. Number one, I know what some of you might be thinking. Oh, he's going to put Discworld, he's going to put Terry Pratchett as one. Terry Pratchett belongs on its own list, so it's not Terry Pratchett, but it's very much like Terry Pratchett. This is a delightful, funny, intelligent book. This is Barry Hughart's Bridge of Birds. This is a fantastic little book. This is Asian based, right? It's about a main character called Ox, and somebody is sick in his village, and he goes to see a old wise man. And the old wise man he's an alcoholic, he's cynical, but he's old and wise, and he's cantankerous as well. He's a bit of a misery. But those two go on a quest together to get a cure, and it's just a fantastically well paced, well written, funny little book. This is very much it's very much like the Monkey King, the classic Monkey King, where it doesn't take itself seriously at all. You're not going to get any deep introspective, like cynical European kind of literature here. This is very much a charming little ditty, comical, not like in your face kind of comedy. It's there, but it's charming. It's a very much a charming little book about a Asian culture, about a apprentice Ox who's a bit naive, and a cynical old drunken wise man who are trying to find a cure for this village. And this is a book what everyone should read. It is a classic, absolute classic of a book, and that's why it's on everybody's list to do from the 80s. And that's it, folks. That's all 5 fantasy books that you should read from the 1980s, and I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you soon.